This is the Note Closers Show, where you get the latest developments in distressed note investing and learn the secrets of how you can control millions of dollars worth of property for pennies on the dollar. Get educated and entertained by someone who has closed thousands of deals and lives to support you in achieving the same. Now, here's your host, CEO of We Close Notes, Scott Carson.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the Note Closer Show. We are excited to be on here today. If you're listening on iTunes and any of the podcast platforms, you are going to enjoy this one. And you're in for a very special treat for those of you that are watching this live on the Facebook Live as we live stream it out here. We have a special guest today. I wanted to differentiate a little bit from the different ways of making money in notes to bring on a guy that I have known, going back quite a few years now, a good buddy of mine. We've made trades and literally kind of watched each other kind of bounce around and do some amazing things in the industry as we've gotten a little bit more mature with what we're doing. But my good buddy, Doug Roberts, who's the managing member of DSRE, right, or DSRM?
DSRE.
DSRE Consulting out of Austin, Texas. And so good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Mr. Carson.
How are you doing, man?
Another day in paradise, sir. I wish the sun would come out so I could play a little golf, but it's not looking like this is going to be my day. So,
well, you know what? You're in South Austin, we're in North Austin. Doesn't look too bad. It's might be a good day for golf, huh?
Well, we'll see. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
So, Doug, why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do and all that good stuff? How's that sound?
Yeah, sure. So as it relates to, all the note stuff, I got in the mortgage business back right when the tech bubble blew up. And I started a mortgage company, got a little mortgage bank called Southern Lending, and did that for, right until about 2008, 2009, grew it to pretty substantial. We had about 100 loan officers and probably about, 40-ish, underwriters and processors, stuff like that on staff. And then when the bottom fell out, I spent about a year trying to figure out, what I was going to do, and then figured out that I could go out there and essentially start buying all the bad loans that me and all my peers were writing during the heyday of the mortgage business. So in about early 2010, started DSRE, and initially started doing non-performing stuff and did that for about not that long, 6 months, 12 months, something like that. It's funny. We took down a real big pool, 800 some odd loan GMAC pool, which back then, you could buy for 8 or 9 cents on the UPB. And that, but it was so many loans and that I kind of lost it just for a year. All I did was work through that tape. And through working through that process, made some relationships with some guys that had been in the performing note business all the way back since the RTC days, and really buddied up with them and decided that was going to be a better path for me. And so I started doing performing back in probably early 2011. Yeah. And it made it, I liked it better. It made it easier for me to raise money. I felt like cash flow was, and it was a simpler thing for me. I got it. I understood performance better than non-performance. So, I'd say right now I probably own 250 some odd performing loans, and I probably have a rental pool that's about half that big. The majority of those rentals, though, are really lease purchases that, we bought in the hopes that they would roll into owner finance, and some of them do, and some of them don't. But yeah, man, it's been an interesting ride. It's been a pretty interesting ride these last few years. It seems like performing has now really kind of come to the forefront. It seems like a lot more folks are talking about it, and so thanks to you raising the prices.
Actually, you should know I don't talk performing most of the time. I spend most of my time on the non-performing side. They're smart ass. But anyway.
You said performing one time and I saw everything go up 85 basis points that day.
Yeah. Well, that might be a possibility.
But yeah, man. But yeah, it's I really enjoy it. It's a good space that I feel like once you have an understanding of it, it's easy to understand more and more and more and more. And kind of like one of the reasons I enjoy listening to some of your different shows is just kind of reaffirming the intricacies of all this stuff and how easy it is to know what you're doing. We're experts, right? But boy, I tell you what, if I don't follow that recipe book, this is baking. It's not, it's not cooking. And it's so easy to forget one little thing about a bankruptcy, or I made a mistake on 4 loan mods that I bought about a year ago, and they were loan mods, so they were bigger loans. They were probably UPBs of 175 to 250,000, and I did not do my job properly on them, and as a result, I've had to buy them back from the capital partner, and I'm having to work through them myself. And they will work out because I hedged value. So worst case scenario, if I have to take them back, then that would be a good payday. But in the interim, they're not loans that I can sell because I didn't do my job. So it's always good to, constantly have these reminders. I think constantly to put myself in the path of education, whether I'm on the teaching side or the learning side, even though a lot of the times I'm just kind of nodding my head like, yeah, I know this. There's not one time that I'm not like, ooh, yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's like I listened to one of your things the other day and I'm sending you a text message that night going, hey, can you send me that thing that you were talking about? And as I'm sending the text, I'm like, Doug, you probably could write this. You're like, what are you? And I'm like, dude, this is just how it works. It's great to have relationships too. That's one of the things I love is there's so many people that do what we do that are so happy to help each other because we don't view each other as just this, just horrible competition that, it's either do it, they're going to take the deal if they hear about it or, whatever. Everyone seems to be pretty forthcoming when sharing with their information. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's the truth. It's definitely a very good smaller niche for the most part. Everybody there's enough inventory out here. We're not having to slice each other's throats or stab each other in the back to steal leads or business ideas or anything like that. There's that's the unique thing of it. I think so many people come over the side of the notes and they're like, wow, people are nice over here. And I'm like, yeah, because there's we come from a world of abundance.
Yeah.
That's right. There's no way that, there's no way I can take down as many notes as I want to by myself or take down everything. I mean, it's a hoarder's mentality. So that's a beautiful thing. So Doug, we met, I think I bought a couple of those assets off the GMAC pools originally how we met.
Yeah, that's right.
I bought a couple condos, got a couple single family homes from me over the years.
Yep.
Picked up a couple condos in Cape Coral Gables, Florida, actually, if I remember correctly, about assets. So you've evolved in a variety of ways. You've gone from the non-performing side to the performing side. You've done some rental pools, some lease options that you talked about to convert them in. And where do you see kind of the market going? Because we kind of labeled this episode the past, the present, and the future aspect of it. So where do you see it going in the next 6 to 12 months or whatever?
It seems to me what I'm starting to see a lot of the progression is that you'll have folks that get into non-performing because the path of entry from a capital standpoint is oftentimes the lowest, right? You can buy a non-performing loan for cheaper than you can buy a performing loan. I start to see a lot of guys that have some success in the trading of the non-performing side, and then have some success in trading and performing, start to really want, get excited or interested in being the actual lender, right? And so getting in from day one, the way that I personally did that is I started originating loans on my houses that I was flipping. So it allowed me to take a house, even in the area we're in Austin, where, the days on market are, super, it's really, really easy to do well here. But I could buy something that was a little bit further out and maybe not rehab it quite as crazily and still sell it at the top of the market because I would offer owner financing on it. And then with the idea that I was going to carry that loan for X amount of months and then pull them up and sell them off in $1 million tranches or whatever the case may be. And so I feel like for myself, where my future is, and then from there it's graduated into doing hard money lending. I feel like that maturation organically sets you up to be a good self-originator of a loan, because you really understand all the bits and pieces that if you try to start off originating a loan, all these documents would be so foreign to you, right? But because you kind of passively grew into that, and like, as I would call just a fixed yield, I like hard money loans because I know that I'm going to make 13%. And I know that if anything defaults, I'm not going to lose money when I take it back because I'm not into things for more than 65 or 70% of a conservative, ARV. So that's where I personally have seen it going. Sorry about this. I've got a 100-pound bulldog just trying to get outside. Go on. Sorry about that, Scott. Go on.
All right. Hey.
Go on, Titus. Go on.
When nature calls, nature calls.
If he wants to go to the bathroom, he's gonna go. You just gotta hopefully get him outside. He doesn't really follow a lot of. It's like his father. He just kind of does things how he wants to do them. But then every time I think that that's the way, that the way Doug thinks the market's going, and then something like Houston happens. And so then for me, it's like this in Florida. It's like, wow, well, man, now there's going to be tons of non-performing loans, and there's going to be tons of workouts, and there's going to be a ton of assignment opportunities. There's a lot of ways to make money in a market that otherwise to me felt saturated, where I wasn't seeing a lot of opportunities. I don't remember the last time I saw a tape that had several hundred Houston assets on it, right? And I'm sure those are coming. I don't know at what level yet. I haven't seen them yet. I do have some buddies that flip houses in Houston that are slated to do 200 or 300 in the next 12 months, where they thought they might have done 75 as a result of the storm. And God bless those folks. But so I think that's kind of where it comes. Something else, when Trump got elected, one of the things that I was initially looking for was Dodd-Frank being repealed, which to me would have been very exciting. I know that Dodd-Frank has made me originating owner financed paper more expensive simply because I choose to use a third party to originate the loans now, just to make sure I've got that additional layer of security. Come on, you're in or out, bro. That's your last chance. And so I'll be interested to see, I think as legislation changes, it'll be, that as in any, investment vehicle, there's always going to become some, new paths that open up that maybe right now I don't see. But here's how I look at it. When more people, and this is when I started to jack with hard money, you start seeing everyone's flipping houses. Well, then to me, it's like, okay, well, then there needs to be more money. Now what I'm noticing is everyone's a hard money lender, except 99% are brokers that are bringing you deals at 14% with 4 points when it's probably really a 12.5% loan with 2 points. But you and I both have had to, live through countless years of joker brokers, or whatever the PC term is these days. I mean, God love them, dude. I had to fake it till I made it a long, long time ago, and I'll never knock that hustle. That said, I'm seeing constant. Hey, we do hard money. And you know me, I pretend like I need the money, and I walk them all the way to the end of the plank and then realize, yeah, they're absolutely not the person. And it's one more person I can mark off my list. But I've identified, I was working on it yesterday. I sent you a text over the weekend asking you for the name of that website where I could do assignment research, because I was wanting to see one of these groups, and I found a group in Dallas that I think I've located like 380 assignments in the last 12 months that they've done. So they're not going to cover off the ball, but I've also been able to find out they're a $100 million fund, and, they've been doing it for a very long time. And so that's, to me, that's the future for me. But again, for now, because it seems like the landscape can change so quick that if I get a pool of non-performing loans in Houston that looks right and it's a big play, then I can pump the brakes on everything I'm doing and start to do that. And I like that about the note business. I like that I can see an opportunity. And if I'm just flipping houses, all I'm doing is flipping houses. I mean, I'm always going to flip a house here and there, when one lands on my desk that I want to do myself. But I like how nimble I can be in the note space, where I can change my focus when the opportunities present themselves. Of course, if I found a tape of 200 non-performing loans in Houston, I'd be driving right over to the We Close Notes office in North Austin. Hey, Scott, look what I found.
Yes, and then you and I'd be driving our happy asses to Houston.
That's exactly right.
Because the first tape I ever did was a non-performing tape of Houston notes from, you might remember them, Aegis Mortgage.
AEGIS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to sell paper to them back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was 2009. It was a $5 million tape over there, and it was after all the shit had hit the fan. So it was just the count rep and the president was still left in the offices because they basically shut doors.
Jesus Christ!
It was a $5 million trade on Houston assets at roughly 50% of value at that point.
Yeah,
it was a nice trade,
Yeah. Did y'all end up taking it down?
We flipped it for 5 points, so for $250,000.
Yeah.
And I got a fifth of that because there's other people involved that were helping it, and I had a partner at the time. So yeah, that was not a bad payday. Not everybody's first deal is going to put you $50,000 in your pocket. I mean, you got plenty of deals at $1,000 here and there. You know what I mean?
And especially back then when we first were doing this, it was kind of like, well, where's the actual payday? And it was lots of, if I got paid on every asset that I ever looked at, boy, oh boy, and it took me a while to really figure out how to not waste my time. I used to be so I would romanticize the idea when I would get a portfolio and oh my goodness. And it's all these assets and I'm bringing it at the end of the day, if somebody would have said, hey, you don't even have to bid these are yours. Now, what are you going to do? I would have been like, well, oh, wait a second. So I got to start with just asset number one. And I got to do all these things on just asset number one. And I think I learned my lesson on that big GMAC pool that, if I'm not going to flip a tape around, if I'm going to really have to do anything with it, I don't want to buy more than 25 or 30 loans at a time. One, I don't really have the bandwidth. And two, I don't really want the bandwidth. I don't want a huge staff. And because for me, that requires me to consistently feed that staff the opportunities. And then if the opportunities start to dry up, well, then I have to kind of take my guidelines out a little bit on each side because I'm trying to do deal flow. It's just like when I have a construction crew on staff for my flips. I'm doing flips just to keep them busy because I don't want to lose them. And I might not even be doing the flip because it really fits my model. So that's kind of why that's really was my path to getting into the lending side of it rather than the buying side of it. Not that I still don't buy and sell loans, but the lending side of it, I have such control of the deal flow right out of the gate. And it takes away some of the variables, at least from the buyer seller. Like we had just spoke about that fund that I got a tape from a few weeks ago and I thought it was great. And I go to buy it and I raise my capital and everything's good to go. And then figure out that the guy that brought it to me actually was full of crap. And I had taken my broker blinders off because I've been doing this so long, I know what I'm doing. And he was speaking the language and I didn't sniff it out. And lo and behold, can't find the seller. So I'd have to go back to a capital partner and say, hey, yeah, that $1 million that you were ready to place or give or take, we're no longer going to do it and get some egg on my face. Hey, I didn't vet the guy right and so on and so forth. But that's what
that happens, though. I mean, that's the thing that happens in this business. Some people don't realize that is sometimes sellers just disappear at some point, or owners don't do anything for 4 years on a portfolio. And then it makes it impossible for you once they start having, to hold their feet to the fire, to pull collateral, to pull servicing notes, they realize they don't have that stuff. And then
if you try to devalue, so I had that happen with a group out of Victoria that we just kind of found. I had a guy that I hired on Fiverr just trying to run a little model for me and seeing if he could locate. And he did a pretty good job. And he located a guy in Victoria that owned 20 some odd, 30 some odd loans. Approached the guy, everything was great. It would have been a case study for a note workshop, perfect. And then it came time for collateral files. And when I drove to Victoria to meet with him to explain this to him because I didn't want him to think I was just trying to fade price. But I was like, based on what you have in these files, I can't pay 77 cents for these. I've got to be in the 60s because this. And of course, he didn't take it very well. But that's what can happen when you're out there when you're trying to turn a note owner into a note seller that really doesn't know anything about selling loans and really never had the intention. And until they get a mailer from like FMBA or somewhere else, it's like, hey, your loan at 123 Main Street, we're ready to buy it. And they're like, well, how in the world did these folks even know about it? Because we put together a whole tape for them and really spent a lot of time and put a lot of pressure on my staff. on something that in hindsight was never going to close. So, but if it would have, they were phenomenal loans. They were owner financed loans that all had probably 4 to 5 years of seasoning, and the coupon rate, I think the weighted average coupon of the portfolio was 12.5. And, you know, we were going to buy them in the 70s, which was probably about 65 to 70% of the value of the home. So, but, you know, live and learn.
Yeah, it's about a 16 yield.
Yeah.
So, on that stuff. So, yeah, not bad at all. For if you got cheap money coming in, you can split that and make the arbitrage in between for sure.
Yeah.
So how many deals do you think you've done in the last 8 years, Doug? I know you ran out of fingers and toes a while back, but
like number of deals or number of loans?
Number of deals. And then a number of individual loans. Let's take it 2 categories because you've done a ton of deals.
I would say number of deals. I would say I probably have done about. I know I've never gone a quarter without closing a new deal. So let's say I'm doing 6 a year, on a good year, maybe 10 deals. And that's not including like a onesie twosie. I mean, I'll still find some off loan on FCI that the guy that runs the exchange, Tim Gardner, will call me and go, dude, this thing's perfect. No one's touching it, blah, blah, blah. But I'd say in 8 years, I probably have done 65 deals, something like that, which I mean, it's a lot. And then including the 800 loan, which is kind of a curve record, but with those 60, let's call that 612, probably 2,500-ish loans, something like that.
Yep.
God, where's the money?
It's right there when you look in the mirror. It's the gray hair you get from doing all that work.
You got the real 50 Shades of Gray right here, buddy. Right here.
The 50 Shades of Notes right there, baby.
Exactly. As you can see right here, here's the non-performing, totally gray side.
A little bit of the performing down in the lower.
Yeah. I thought my future was going to be getting into the real high level Fannie scratch and dent paper and, trying to align myself with, these big fund managers that we run into. And, the guys I work with out of Arkansas that kind of play around in that space. And again, I just kind of realized that to me was a very corporate route to go, to try to grow into that, just to kind of be there. The guy that takes the scratch and dent off the guys that are buying scratch and dent. You're still talking about buying, $25-30 million portfolios. And I don't want to say I didn't have the bandwidth. I didn't want to have the bandwidth to go try to raise that kind of money.
Right. Well, and then because that becomes a full-time, it's a full-time gig, almost a slave.
And securities, I would have had to go get a 7. I would have had to go get securities. I would have had to go get licenses that I am not willing. I have no desire to go do that kind of stuff, but I feel like if you're going to be jacking with stuff and raising funds in excess of $20 million, you better have it really, really buttoned up. So plus you're raising institutional money at that point. You're going to small mom and pop banks and family foundations and people like that, if there's a bump in the road, they're going to come try to attach their horse to your giddy up. So.
Right. And you got 3 kids, 4 kids? 4 kids.
19-year-old and 17-year-old boys, and then 14 and 13-year-old daughters. And God bless anyone with 2 teenage daughters. I mean, good Lord, man. If you think you're cool, you're wrong. If you think you're right, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, but that's the thing. You do a lot of the fun stuff yourself. You live life by your own measures there, brother, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To my own peril, but the stories are great. When the book comes out, it's going to be a bestseller, and I promise you get a signed copy. So
that's good. I appreciate. You know what? I'll write your forward for you. How's that sound?
It'll be a good one. That's good. Well, yeah, I definitely do. It affords me the opportunity to be able to spend a lot of time doing stuff. Like I can go take my kids lunch at school every day, or if I want to go play golf. Like my schedule today would have been, I was at the gym at 4:30 this morning. I had my call with you in between the gym and this. I had some due diligence I was doing on a loan that I'm getting ready to originate for a guy that's buying 6 duplexes up in Dallas. And then I was going to do this, and then I was going to go play golf for 3 or 4 hours. And then I had time blocked off for more underwriting, a couple of sales calls this afternoon, and then picking up my 17-year-old after school. And he and I are going to go get a bite to eat. So, kind of float around, do what I want, which is, it's ideal. That's really the only thing that works for me.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Somebody's brand new in the business. What would be a tip that you would give them?
I don't want this to sound like a plug, but I wouldn't tell anyone to do this without being in some type of mentoring program, some type of educational platform like yours. And that probably really does sound like a plug, and it's really, really not. I think so many times you see it in every aspect of real estate, especially flipping. Okay, I got this. I've watched the TV shows. I took the class. I would tell someone don't, and actually one of your students and I had a conversation last week about this. Taking one class, in my opinion, is not enough to go out there and start doing deals. I would do lots of paper trades. I would look at tapes, pretend like I got it, and work through as much of it as I possibly could without really doing it, because I don't care whose money you're using, your money, your parents' money, your friends' money, strangers' money, which that's where it starts to get a little bit trickier, but it's way easier to lose money than make money. And the easiest way to thwart that is education. Well, education either costs money and it costs time. And I think a lot of times the education, the path to the education is not really that expensive, but people just want to get going. They want to start making money. You need to have mentors. You need to have people who have a vested interest in answering your questions when you have them. And if that costs you money, which it should, that's the only way to mess with it. Because, man, like I said, I bought $1 million worth of mods 12 months ago. I did the underwriting myself. I know how to do this. I really understand this stuff, and I messed up. And I have $1 million worth of mods that have the whack is probably 3 1/8 based on the mod docs. And I was reading the mod docs on my laptop on an airplane, and they were TIFF files right there. Because I was like, man, I can't. And I'm literally putting my laptop sideways because I can't figure out how to, tilt or rotate the document. And I couldn't really read the scans of the bankruptcy documents. And I just kind of, it's fine. Because we're buying another one from the same group that I'll never buy from again. You and I have talked about this group before. But if I would have slowed down and I would have called someone and been like, hey, look, here's what I'm doing. And I think education is really, really, really important. It's paramount, because here's the deal. Finding deals, not that hard. Finding money, way easier once you get used to it. A lot of people think that that's the hardest part. It's really, really not. And there's always investment money out there. There's always more money than deals, in my opinion. No matter what the economy is doing, there's always more money than deals. So I would tell people to really, really understand what you're doing. And when something doesn't make sense, make it make sense before you just skirt on by it. If you're Googling something to understand the terminology, pump your brakes just a little bit. And I'm not saying walk away from the deal, like just pour hours onto it then, to sleep 3 or 4 hours a day and spend the rest of your time just completely, submersed in the educational portion of it. Because there's so much education out there. I mean, like you've got, guys like yourself. Google's a beast. I've had a hard time asking her anything that she doesn't understand. So
yeah, she knows it. And then Siri knows quite a bit as well too. Yes. That's the beautiful thing is you and I and quite a few people come from the mortgage industry, where we learned, mortgage industry having to be basically, loan officers, mortgage brokers.
Yeah.
And so the aspect of coming on the default side is just the reverse side of that. Is you still look through the same stuff. You still look to make sure it's qualified, but now it's just at a bigger discount, and you're not originating. It's de-originating it for the most part. I
like that word. Yeah, I like that word. But we've seen the forms before, like I had seen a note in a deed of trust and a loan application and a credit report. And I learned all that stuff using other people's money because, as a mortgage broker or as a mortgage banker, I mean, it's not like we had to raise any capital. You know what I mean? I mean, it was essentially get this paperwork filled out and hand it to us, and here's all the money, and we're going to pay you way more than you should for being someone that's just collecting information from the end user. But it also, you familiarize yourself with all the terminology, and it starts to even go down. Like I had a guy the other day, we're on a call, and I thought he was very experienced, and I kept talking about the whack. And then he finally, and good for him, said, what does whack? He could have got off the phone and tried to Google and been typing in WACK. He never would have figured out that whack is WAC, weighted average coupon, just a fancy way of saying the weighted average return of this portfolio is, right? I have been the guy that did not ask what the whack meant because I did not want to look like I didn't know what was going on. And it's an expensive lesson to learn, either in missing opportunities or even more expensively missing free information. Everybody you hear me, I love that. I'll sit down with anyone and talk for hours and just give them every piece of information that I have, because we all like talking about what we know and who doesn't? I mean, we're good at what we do. We know a lot about this stuff, and we've been doing it for a long time comparatively to how long this has really been a market, right? Like, we're experts. Well, who doesn't like to talk about Barry Bonds? They would love to talk to you about hitting. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. Everybody loves to talk about what they understand. So I think that people newer to the business or people very seasoned in the business should take advantage of that, because it's information. Sometimes it's free information. And even when it's not free, it's not very expensive.
No, that's true. It's a matter of swallowing that pride a little bit, saying, can you answer this question? Can you ask a question? Because the best bang for my buck is when I go to an event, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to ask a question, whether it's a panelist or a speaker. I'm always thinking, okay, what's the question that this person knows that I don't? And that happens pretty often. I always try to take things, and you and I pick up the phone, call each other, text each other on a regular basis for the most part. Hey, have you heard about this guy? We posted that ad about the San Diego mortgage fraud.
Yeah.
Company that you and I both traded with in the past.
Bro, Connix, could you
believe
that? Dude, blew my mind. I did some big deals with those guys. I bought non-performing jumbos from them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who knows? But yeah.
And the fact that those guys were still committing fraud after the attorney general and everything was after them too. That's just stupid.
That's gangster. That guy does not care. That is literally, that guy is like, for one, they're already living in like $10 million houses out there. Get busted, know they're going to prison, admit it, and then just keep it going. And you know what's sad about that is they used to be a really legit shop. I mean, those guys have been around for a very, very long time. From the cusp of the market from the very beginning. And they were real successful back when the mortgage business was in its heyday and had great reputations. And, and obviously things changed. But to go back to what we were kind of talking about, when you talk about like a term like whack, well, terms change too. Like, you'll start to hear people start to call something different. And then if I don't know what they're talking about, I try really hard not to be the guy that thinks that, well, I'm the most seasoned vet in this room, so I don't want to ask these people what the hell they're talking about, because oftentimes it's just, oh, well, they're saying the exact same thing that you already know. They're just saying it. This is the new term. This is how the cool kids are saying it, or whatever the case may be. And every once in a while, I pick something up. Like the assignment research. I did not even remember that was something we could do until I saw you running through it. I'm laying on the couch watching football. You're having one of your classes, and I'm got you on my phone, and I'm halfway lit, and then I hear you pull up Neutron Line, and I hear you going through it, and I was like, what the? And then I was like, golly, Scott, thank you for reminding me, because that was especially now with doing this hard money thing, as I go out there. So I went, instead of doing the private capital route, I went and did the institutional route and went out. I got a $10 million line of credit, and then very quickly realized that's not anywhere near enough. I'm going to go through $10 million in, it'll probably be less than 90 days, which to me, I wouldn't have thought. But now it's looking like I need to get closer to 100. Well, to get to that level, I've got to really have some stuff buttoned up. And the number one thing I need is to be able to walk into these banks and say, look, here's what some of these other guys are doing, and here's why I know they're doing it. So this assignment research is allowing me to put together enough. It's given me some pretty big bullets in the guns to where, rather than these institutions being wondering if or how they're going to be looking at it from the standpoint of this is how much business we're missing out on that our competitors are already doing. Because these guys have to be using institutional money. I couldn't imagine someone doing the kind of volume they're doing on private capital. But I mean, then you've got like the guys in town, Noble. I don't know how much business they do. I haven't done assignment research on them yet, which is actually something that I do want to do.
So what Doug is talking about, everybody, if you missed the Where Would I Begin episode, if, starting all over from scratch again, I talked about going to the local county clerk, the county recorder's office, and doing a search for assignment of mortgages to see what lenders are buying or selling mortgages, or not just banks, but also institutions, private companies like Doug and mine, and tracking that down. And literally, I reached out to one company who pulled it in one county for me, Orange County, Florida, which is Orlando, just to do a quick search. And there's 18,000 names they pulled for me, 9,000 people that were the grantees, and then 9,000 are the grantors. And we consolidated that down into a very nice list that now we could target when we start seeing smaller names. Those are the ones to target for the most part if you're a non-performing note guy. Now, Doug, what you're doing, you're targeting people that are taking out loans. We're doing a lot of loans that are the fix and flippers, the hard money guys, because those are the people you want to target for more business, are coming to them. Hey, I have more money, or I see that you're at 14.4. I can do it at 14.3 or 13.5 and 3, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And we're also trying to figure out how much volume, that is being done by these entities. And it's like you said, I mean, you look at some of those lists, and it's when you can narrow down, when you can throw out your filters to get the Wells Fargos and the, whatever Bank of America's or whoever else is out there doing that stuff down, you'll find some diamonds in the rough that are big and doing tons of business. You had no idea who they were. And it's kind of how it is. I mean, when we were talking earlier about how everyone can kind of work together in this business, there's so much business. There's so much. I mean, no one's ever heard of me, and I've done a bunch. You know what I mean? Yeah, you went around, you could go around and ask 1,000 people in this business, hey, do you know Doug Roberts at DSRE? You might find a couple that, that do, but if they're at Texas, right? Or, you know what I mean? But no, and we're real. We do a bunch of business, and no one's ever heard of us. And we're probably still, I would say, small. We're not mid-size, we're small, and there's a lot of small, there's a lot of mid-size, there's a lot of levels in between us and banks. And there's also a lot of levels between us and down to the person that's just now buying their first loan. So,
right, exactly. Got a quick for those that are watching, feel free to type in your questions in the Facebook that you have for Doug and me real fast. We've got a question, Nicole.
Yeah, our student Laura Blanc asked, is there a book or a PDF out there outlining the mortgage business from the bank's standpoint?
I don't know. Laura asked a question if there's a book out there underlying the mortgage industry from the bank status.
I mean, if what you're talking about is, I mean, I know that you can find like Fannie's underwriting guidelines online, which that's a really good thing to understand. To look at another good thing to look at is Fannie's stacking order. I use that for my files. Just, I don't know why I like that so much. It could just be because of my background came from mortgages. And so it makes sense. Collateral files for me, I have to, just like right now, I've got huge stack of this one I'm working on right now because I have to touch everything. I like the collateral file, even though this is a copy. The originals are at the title company, but I like to touch it. And I sit there and put everything in the right stacking order. But because then for me, I can then go through it and check off, yes, this is here. And yes, I have this and I have this signed and I have this and this is dated the same date that this is dated. And this is signed and it's notarized and the notary stamp is there and it's signed and dated by the notary and all these little things that I literally will go back to Fannie Mae's guidelines on that kind of stuff. So
yeah, one of my mentors early on, Bob Leonetti, told me when you're looking at a loan file, think of it as a long hallway with multiple doors. And your collateral file or the loan file is like having a sticky note on the outside of the door. That it's done, it's there, that you don't have to open the door to go in and find anything.
Yep.
It's all right there. So you want to walk down that hallway and just look at sticky notes, which is basically your clean collateral file to that end door and open up, and that's when funding takes place, or you're buying the asset. A good thing, Lauren, might be to actually go out and download. You probably find this. I don't know what the cost would be, but find out like the Texas State Mortgage Brokers Test and the study manual for that. That would probably be a good one to initially look at. I mean, you got to realize with licensing, they're all worried about licensing and questions and Q&A stuff. It may not exactly be the nitty gritty stuff that you need to know. Yeah, well, you passed your test, great. Now you can come learn the business. Sit with a processor. Sit with somebody that's what I had to do. Was sit with a processor for about a week and a half to figure out exactly the ins and outs and going from there. But that would probably be a good one. Fannie Mae, that'd be stuff you can find, mortgage licensing, stuff like that would probably be a good kind of a learning point if you want to.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Getting a sample test of like a Texas mortgage or whatever state mortgage broker's license test and take a sample test. And then maybe get the study guides for that. That couldn't hurt. I don't know if that's exactly, I think that's what she's asking. I don't think she's asking like for a history of the mortgage industry type of book, but.
Yeah. What other questions? Any other questions right now? No? Okay, good. So Doug, you've evolved. What's probably been your most interesting deal?
In business. Sorry. Had to do it, Scott. Had to do it.
Not talking about not talking about dates. I'm talking about in business. Yeah. Right.
Oh Lordy. That rental pool that I bought. So I bought 100 houses from one seller in Gastonia, North Carolina. Scott's very familiar with that trade because he heard the ups and downs of me thinking I was going to make it rich and then thinking I was going to lose it all to thinking that I wanted to hire a hitman to go after the property manager and long story short, which that doesn't make it an interesting story, but we made a bunch of money. If you can buy what I learned from the Gastonia portfolio is density really, really is a good stop loss against mistakes because you're there. You got so much. You can feed contractors so much business. If you have attorneys involved, they know they're going to get so much. If there's realtors involved, they know they're going to get so much. And so everyone's fighting hard for you. But that Gastonia deal was supposed to be flipped inside of, let's say, 6 months. And I think that it took me 18 months to get in and out of it. So we had to do a full term out leases, rehab the properties, sell it in one-off owner financing, pull those up and sell them off. I learned a lot there. One of the things I learned is that I don't like living in Gastonia because I spent a lot of time in Gastonia. For those that don't know where Gastonia, it's on the north side of Charlotte in North Carolina. And it's in a growing area. It's a rougher area, though, around Concord, that neck of the woods. Let me give you the pitch. Gastonia, North Carolina, I would liken that to Georgetown or Cedar Park because, it's about 20 miles from the Charlotte airport. It's got good density. It's close. That's easy access to Charlotte. That was how I would teach people what Gastonia was. And then, the one that's been the kind of the second funnest, I've had some fun ones. The fun ones were, bought 2 big non-performing loans in Hermosa Beach. Well, those were awesome. They were probably break evens at the end of the day, but I got to spend a bunch of time out in California. And, I've done the same thing on a Vegas loan and did the same thing on a couple of loans in the Miami area where those were kind of fun. That big pool I bought in Gary, Indiana, we bought 65 rentals up in Gary, Indiana that are lease purchases, but they're essentially rentals when you really break it down. That's been an interesting point. I've learned some of my best deals. I've learned that I never want to do a deal like that again. Like I would say that Gastonia, we made a tremendous amount of money on those. And I would never do it again because it was just kind of like the 800 loans I bought from GMAC. We made a bunch of money, but God, it was a night. I woke up every day in a panic. I woke up, panicked, didn't know what I was doing. And, you couldn't, I just didn't like it. But so that's where I learned. I think that when you can graduate into working on the parts of the business that you like, well, no matter how much you do or don't make, I mean, we can all go out there and do stuff we don't like to make more money. And I still do that sometimes. And I, relearn a lesson or I figure out I got to suck it up and do what I have to do to make the kind of money I need to make. Like you said, I got 4 kids, and it's not cheap, but But yeah, those bigger portfolios they've got so many cool stories, you know, and it's so funny but man, when they're going on, it's I did not think Gastonia was fun when I was messing with Gastonia at all. I thought it was horrible. I hated Gastonia.
It's not quite Austin, Texas. I'll tell you that.
How could you imagine? Yeah, you give me 100. You give me 100 houses in Austin for less than 10 grand a house.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the big event, big social event gathering at Gastonia or Taylorsville or Hickory, North Carolina, is not the NASCAR race. It's the lawnmower races on Friday night.
If even. Yeah. If even. Yeah. I could tell you some stories of some.
I've been there and seen, a town of 3,500 people where there's 2,000 of them out at the lawnmower races, and you got preachers running over preachers trying to win a race. As the Christian night, it was kind of, but you know what? Salt of the earth. People still got to pay their mortgage.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things. I'm glad you said that. That's one of the things. I just went through this with a guy that's a buddy of mine. Oh, I want to tell me what you do. Tell me what you do. Okay, I want to invest some money, and was going to put it out of his self-directed. He was going to do about $1 million. So I show him a couple of tapes that I have access to, and oh man, he has the geographic. Oh man, I just don't know about that area. And I'm like, I used to try to sell against that objection when I was out there raising capital so hard. Oh, well, let me just show you the stats and, all these different things, which is great. But now I don't even do that. Now I literally say, look, here's the opportunity. This is where the assets are. People live in these homes. People pay to live in these homes. These are people. Ma'am or sir, do you believe people live in Detroit, Michigan? Yes or no? Yes. Do you believe that some people pay their bills in Detroit, Michigan? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. That's it. That the reason it's a $33,000 loan that we're buying for $12,000 on a house that's worth $43,000 is because it's in Detroit. The rest of that stuff has to become irrelevant. So I will not argue over geographic location with people anymore, because this is a big country and people live all over it. And for the better part, most of them are paying their bills.
Yeah, exactly. I will kind of remove the lower, smaller cities,
rural. No, but when I go in and take a location out, it's based on the same things that you do. It could be in a major market, but if right behind it is a highway and a Best Buy and a railroad track, I'm not buying that house. I'm not. I don't want it. I don't want to take it back. If I wouldn't want to take it back, I don't want the note in the first place, right? So I follow all those same kind of guidelines, and a lot of times I will go back to some of the stuff that I've gotten from you. I literally did it when I had you send me your initial underwriting stuff. Couple of weeks ago. Yeah, exactly. I went through it and I was like, oh, you know what? You've been getting sloppy, Doug, because you haven't been looking at, okay, here's the population, here's the schools, here's the crime rate, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, oh, wait a second, let's look on the map. And I'm like, sure enough, oh, look, there's a Best Buy within a stone's throw of the backyard. Well, so of course with things like that, but I will not accept from someone saying, Cleveland, Ohio, really? I'm going to invest in Cleveland? I'm just like, no, you're not. If what you're waiting for is for me to bring you a portfolio of Austin and Dallas and Houston performing loans that we're going to buy at a substantial discount, just tell your guy at Merrill Lynch you're never pulling light from your 401k, because you're not with me, because it's not coming. Nobody that. How many? Okay, so out of the thousands and thousands, I wonder how many assets we've seen since 2009. I've never seen an Austin. Actually, yes, I've seen that one Austin asset that kept popping up in tapes. It was like a condo.
4310 Yopon Drive. There's that gray colored. Yes.
Point being, the banks aren't stupid. They know what they have. They're not getting rid. It's just like we talked the other day, and I didn't realize this. I called Scott the other day and I'm like, hey buddy, got this big buyer in Nashville, need to find some stuff. And you just started laughing and you were like, oh really, Nashville, Doug? That's interesting. Nobody wants Nashville. And then as I realized through talking to you and talking to some other folks that Nashville is a smoking hot market and the banks know what they have. And I call some asset manager buddies of mine and get laughed out of the room, just like I did when I asked you what was going on in Nashville. So
I didn't laugh you out of the room. I simply took a few minutes to educate. That's all, because I've been there a couple weeks ago.
You chuckled, Scott. You chuckled. You chuckled.
I did chuckle. I'm not lying. I did chuckle. I was like, oh, I wish I had some stuff in Nashville too.
Yeah. Well, of course, then I have to back it up with, but what about non-performing? And you're like, Doug, same thing. Now you're gonna ask me commercial too, right? Because that's the same thing. But yes, yeah.
There's opportunities in a multitude of markets. I think that's the biggest thing that would say. And I try to tendency to avoid the hottest top things. Austin. And I think we've come to that conclusion earlier on because we lived in Austin, and if we could buy anything in our backyards, we would if it makes sense. But we just don't see that much stuff, and that's why we've had to look in the Clevelands and the Gastonias and the West Palm Beaches of the world.
Well, it seems to me like when you're working with when you're working with an asset manager, a guy running or a gal running the trading desk, their job is to sell, right? So it's kind of like the shoe salesman. Hey, do you have this one in a size 12.5? And they're like, no, but I've got this completely different one that does not match what you're looking for at all. That's how I found Gastonia. Some guy brought it to me and said, hey, I know you said you were looking for Austin. How about Gastonia? Mm-hmm. And, it just kind of is what it is. But I think that when you take your blinders off to being completely put off by a market because you've never heard of it before, isn't always the best way to go. I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there, and the larger players aren't going to buy 100 houses in Gastonia, so it's a good little mid-level. And I've oftentimes on deals like that, I'll go try to find people. I'll go try to raise money in those markets. I've never really had a ton of success with that just because, as you know, I don't really have the back office bandwidth for a lot of that kind of stuff. So I don't have people that I choose not to have people on staff that I can say, look, here's the model, run with it. But I think that when people are getting going in this business, having your procedures, not doing things real willy-nilly. I'm a real shoot from the hip guy, and have to a lot of times go back and be like, okay, exactly how did I come up with this? How did I get to this piece of information, to where I'm going back in my browser history, and I'm just like, wow, that was crazy that I even got to the finish line. And so then I have to go back and take my time and write out my SOPs. So it's something that can be repeated by someone other than myself if I choose to grow that one model any further than just the Doug Roberts show. So
yeah, SOP, for those that don't know, SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures for everybody out there. And that's the thing. You got to have plans in place, things to take it, step 1, step 2, step 20, whatever it is, to help you get to where you want to be if you want to grow at any point. So, Doug, I know that you got a busy day. You've got through that cup of coffee there, and you've got a ton of things to get done today like I do. We have any other final questions from anybody out there? No? Okay, cool. Thank you for taking the time, man.
Yeah, buddy, my pleasure, man. It was a good time. Anytime.
Yeah. You and I could sit here and spin for hours. Maybe we should sell a workshop to us just talking for 4 days.
You know what? I guarantee you we would get repeat business for that one. I keep them on the edge of their seat. We probably need to do it in the PM. There would need to be some kind of age disclaimer, and just so people don't want to hear stuff they don't want to hear. I get it, but I got a lot of stories that nobody wants to hear. And especially with Hef, my idol and mentor, passing away, I have the need to share. So
with that, everybody, we'll wrap it up. Once again, thanks for joining us, Doug.
All right, Scotty, we'll see you.
See you later, bud. So yeah, guys, if you thanks for joining us live. Make sure to go out and follow us on iTunes or Stitcher if you're listening on the podcast and enjoy the episodes. Please make sure to leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you like, what we can get better at, what you dislike, even the constructive criticism we appreciate, so we can help make this show better for you. But once again, thanks for joining us on this episode. Big shout out to our sponsors with Laughlin and Associates, Quest IRA, as well to our big sponsors. Make sure you check them out, especially Laughlin. You can check them out at corpveilprotection.com. That's CRPveilprotection.com. And of course, you can always check out questira.com to help you with your self-directed IRA needs. So Until our next episode, have a great day. Go out and make something happen, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.